What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another video. I thought today we would take a look at my Lando Calrissian in his Skiff Guard Disguise run. I've got some loose graded variants as well as a couple of mint on card figures. Before I begin in earnest, let me say thank you to my Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. Your support allows me to make more and better videos, so thank you for your support. I just received in the mail a beautiful palitoy tri-logo 70 back B Lando Skiff Guard. And here he is. This is courtesy of Chris W. You guys know him well. He is been on the channel a couple of times now on some live streams doing some unboxings and talking about baggies. Chris just started a really cool Instagram page. So I'm going to put the link to his Instagram account down here at the bottom. Make sure you go check it out. It's prune_productions on Instagram, at prune_productions. Chris has got a beautiful collection, but he just started kind of showing it off on Instagram, so make sure you check it out. Anyway, Chris sold me this beautiful 70 back B Lando, and I thought we would use that as an excuse to show off some of my other Landos in my collection. But this is a beautiful item. I'm guessing, I don't know what it's going to grade at. I'm going to send this in probably in the next couple of months, but I'm guessing that this will grade out at a 75 plus or an 80. We'll see. It's got a couple of creases there, some light edge wear around the hang tab, and it's got down here at the bottom somewhere, it's got some pretty heavy wear right there. So I'm hoping it scores lower, only so I can hold it over Chris's head for the rest of eternity. But I'm just kidding. I'm hoping it scores an 80. If it scores an 80, it's going to be very tight. So I'm guessing a 75 plus. But nevertheless, it's a really nice item. I'm glad that Chris was willing to part with it. Chris is out of control on a couple of beautiful rare items, so he wanted to fund a purchase, and he sent this one to me. Now, this is the 70 back B. He also landed, and I'm going to go through this in more detail in a little while, but Lando also appeared on the palitoy tri-logo 70 back C. Well, what is the difference? Well, the difference is it revolves around the racetrack. The racetrack can extend a little bit further down and past kind of where the edge of the blister is, and you'll see some writing where the Lucasfilm trademark is. That's usually in white around the racetrack. So 70 back C's and 70 back B's are the two most common for the tri-logos. For the Lando is more common on the 70 back B. The 70 back C is a little bit more rare for the palitoys, and it just depends on the figure. Some figures, the 70 back C is more rare, and some figures, the 70 back B is more rare. So, for example, I've got a Rancor Keeper that is a 70 back C. That's much more common than the 70 back B, to my knowledge. So, but a really nice item. And thank you again, Chris, for sending it my way. The only other mint on card I have before we cut to a quick segment on some other cardbacks that are much more rare and just a general overview of what's available out there is this one. I've had this one for quite a while in my collection. This is a 79 back A with a clear blister, which, I'm not saying it's impossible, but Lando on a Return of the Jedi US card is very difficult to find on with a clear blister. And this one came up. This is a funny story. This one came up. This was probably about two and a half years ago that I purchased this, and an eBay seller listed about 10 or 15 different mint on card figures. Most of them were Return of the Jedi. They were all extremely high grade, 80s and 85s, 80 plus, stuff like that. Anyway, he listed all of them at way below market. I'm talking way below market. And I think as he saw them all selling, he freaked out and pulled them all off the market and then relisted them a couple of days later for much higher and closer to market value. But before he did that, I was able to pick this one up. This one I got for a really, really great price. And it's just a beautiful example of an unpunched 79 back A clear blister Lando. Let's see if we can get it to focus a little better. There we go. We got some weird weather outside. It's kind of like the clouds are rolling by pretty quickly, and so it goes from bright to cloudy very quickly. But anyway, here we go. Here's the label on this one. It's got a nice archival case, and it's graded near mint 80 for the card. Blister got an 85. Figure got an 85. 79 back A. So Lando did appear on several different card backs, and I am going to cut right now to show you a matrix for the US cards, the palitoy cards, and then another quick segment on some other pretty rare foreign card backs. This card back matrix comes courtesy of JediTempleArchives.com. I'll put a link to this in the video description. But the US Kenner cards started with the 65A back. Lando also appeared on the 77 back, the 79 back, which you just saw. And then on the palitoy cards, he also made his debut on the 65 back, and there are several different variations. And then also the 70 back C, which I mentioned. A few other foreign card backs that I just wanted to quickly mention. The left-hand photo is a Kenner Canada Lando Calrissian. The middle photo is the French Meccano card back. And then the right-hand photo is of the Lili Ledy, one of the rarest of the card backs for the Lando Skiff Guard. Okay, so now let's talk about my loose graded variants. I started with Lando pretty early on in my graded figure collection, just because at the time, this was probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. At the time, you know, Lando was a fairly inexpensive figure, and he still pretty much is, depending on where you look. But this one is the No COO, graded 85, and you can see he has the very light skin color to his face versus the hands. Let's see if we can zoom a little better here. You can see how dark his hands are versus his head. Come on. There we go. Versus his head, which is much lighter. So it's a pretty dramatic difference between the face color and his hand color. But this is probably, you know, most of these probably appeared, these No COOs, these appeared on palitoy card backs. And, you know, we'll compare it here. You can see that the color for this one's face is much darker. So I'm guessing that this one is, you know, probably came on regular palitoy Return of the Jedi card backs. But, you know, I don't know why. You know, both of these are probably No COO figures. I couldn't tell you why one is brighter than the other. I've not found a figure focus on Facebook that kind of dives into the different factories. But as far as I'm aware, this is a palitoy Lando, but you know, potentially just a different batch or, you know, different colors. But I thought it was an interesting one, just given the pretty dramatic difference between his hands and his face color. And I think this was one of the very first graded figures, towards the beginning anyway, that I purchased, and I paid like $70 for it. So a really nice example, graded 85. So that's that one. Next, we have the Hong Kong. So these appeared on like the 79 back that I showed you a little while ago. This is what would appear on those card backs, the US card backs. So made in Hong Kong, and this was also graded 85. So the most standard, this is obviously the most standard for all the Landos out there, but a really nice figure. Now let's dive into the foreign variants and the wacky. All right, so we got some pretty wild ones here. First is the most standard of the three. This is the Lili Ledy Lando. Now, one important note on this Lili Ledy, you can always spot the Lili Ledy because he's got the extremely dark skin color. The paint apps are always a lot darker on the Lili Ledy Lando, both on the Skiff Guard Disguise as well as for the Bespin version, which I also have. But this one is graded 85. This was another fairly early purchase that I picked up, although I probably paid more than I probably should have at the time. But a really nice example. Now, an important note that a lot of people don't know, there are three different factory, to my knowledge, there are three different factory variations for the Lili Ledy Lando. You have this one, which is the most common, where he has silver armor. He's got silver armor on his chest and on his shoulders, as you can see there. There is also a gold version, and I'm going to put a picture of one from Jose Del Toro's collection down here as an insert so you can see that. The gold armor is much more difficult to find than the silver armor. The third variation, which is easily the most difficult, is that there are gold shoulders with a silver pauldron or silver chest plate. So it's a mix. It's a mix between gold and silver. And that one, I couldn't find an example on Facebook or, just doing a Google search, but I know they're out there because I've seen them for sale. And those go for quite a bit more. You can talk about probably 50 to 75% higher than a standard silver Lili Ledy Lando. So you got silver, you got gold, and you got a mix between silver and gold on the same figure. So those are the three major variations for the Lili Ledy Lando. Now we get into the hot stuff, the really hot stuff. This is a overstock Lili Ledy Lando. I love this figure. As you guys know, I have a pretty decent collection of Lili Ledy overstock figures. And, you know, for those who are new to the channel or are not aware, the Lili Ledy factory in Mexico, as it was going out of business, they had boxes and boxes of these overstock figures, either partially assembled or unassembled with just non-sonic welded parts, or they were like this one where it was sonically welded but unpainted. And so this one is complete, which is really cool. I think I got this in an auction on eBay for about $100 a few years ago. And so he has his correct helmet. He has the Lili Ledy axe. And I have not looked here, but I wanted to see if we could figure out. Let's see if we can get to zoom here. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But the Lili Ledy axes, I think, can have. I don't think it's going to work for me here. Let's see. Anyway, the Lili Ledy axes have stamps on them. I think there's A, B, and then unstamped, but I could be incorrect on that. I'm only going on memory. I should have looked it up before I started this, but they have little stamps that denote whether the axe is a Lili Ledy or not. I know it's darker. You can see how dark that is versus the lighter axe for the palitoys and the Hong Kong. So you can see the dramatic color difference for the Vibro axe. It's a much darker color, and it does have a stamp on it. But this is sonically welded, as I mentioned, and it's unpainted, so that's really cool. You can see how the armor and the chest and his face and everything is unpainted. A really, really cool example. Now, I've gotten this question a number of times, so I want to answer it now. Why is he slanted to the side like that? And I've mentioned this when I unboxed it originally. The reason that he is slanted like that is because it's a short pour. And for those of you who don't know what short pours are, it's that when the factory was completing certain figures, sometimes they didn't put enough juice in the molds. And when after the mold dried and they spat out the figure, it was kind of tilted like that. So I've seen nubs for hands, old nubby hands with no hand at all. It's just like a little clump of plastic because they didn't put enough material inside the mold. And so this is an example where it's just a slight, they didn't put quite enough on that leg, on I guess his left leg. They didn't put quite enough material in the mold, and so that's why he slants like this. But what a really cool figure, and it's just really cool to have a piece of that history. As Lili Ledy was going out of business, they just had a lot of these overstock parts that that made their way to the secondary market. So really cool. But yeah, the Lili Ledy Lando is a no COO figure, as you can see there. It's just got the LFL stamp, and this one is graded 90. Lili Ledy Star Wars Skiff Guard Disguise overstock. So this is a really neat one. But that's not the wackiest one in my collection. The wackiest one, and I've done a video on this. You can go back and look it up on my channel. If I remember, I will put a link in the description. But this is what's called a Frankenstein figure. How strange is he? He has a Lili Ledy Luke Bespin head, but the Ledy Lando body. So it's a very bizarre creation. Again, as the factory was going out of business, a lot of these parts and pieces made their way to the black market in Mexico, probably in the mid to late 1980s. And a lot of these black marketers would just assemble the parts to make these kind of wacky figures like this. So we call them, in the collecting community, we call them Frankenstein figures because they're kind of a mishmash. And I've got a few of them, and this is one of the cooler ones that I found. They're usually in really rough condition, like the one you see here. I'm having real trouble focusing today. There we go. So it looks like Luke got beat up. Somebody gave him a shiner on his eye. So he's got some discoloration around his eye, lots of paint wear around the chest, lots of paint wear on the foot. And that's really, really common. You can see the chest, or the shoulder pieces have some paint wear. This is a very, very common occurrence, with these Frankenstein figures. They have lots of paint wear on them, just because they were thrown around or they were sold on streets and black markets, things like that. And this one is graded a really solid 40, but it's a hybrid overstock Lando Skiff Guard Body, Luke Bespin Head, Lili Ledy. So, again, it's a low score, but it's such a cool, weird piece of history that I had to grab it. And I didn't pay a cheap amount for it. I probably overpaid for it at the time. But because I love Luke Bespin and because I love Ledy's and Overstock and that kind of stuff, I just thought it would be cool, a nice addition to my collection. So that's a Frankenstein figure, and I'll put a link in the description as I mentioned. So now that we've talked about all of the loose graded figures in my collection, as well as the 2 mint on cards and the cardback history, that about wraps up this video. If you liked this video, be sure to like it and subscribe for future content. I look forward to being back soon, and thank you so much for watching.